Welcome everyone to the Malvern Retreat House. This is our little discussion that we always have, and it airs on Saturday morning. So welcome Joanne, welcome Peter, thanks for joining us here today. And probably be good to go over some of the things that have been happening here this past week at the Retreat House. You want to share anything that you can remember, either one of you, Peter or Joanne?
Sure. Last Saturday we had our volunteer day of service, which was very successful. We had about 20 volunteers come to help us clean up our beautiful Malvern grounds. They brought their own weed whackers and all kinds of gardening tools and made a significant dent in a lot of the parts of the property. We still have a lot more to go though, so we'll probably have another Saturday at some time before the ground freezes.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested in helping us out.
If anybody's interested, we're looking for volunteers. And basically, there was a lot of damage because of all the storms for the past 6 months or so. So a lot of guys came in, did a lot of the heavy groundwork. And so if you can join us in the future, that would be great.
There's a lot of trees here too.
Yes.
And a lot of trees.
A lot of significant.
Yeah.
Financial and physical.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then what retreat did we have last week?
We had the Proset retreat.
Oh, Proset retreat. And sometimes people ask what Proset means. When priests would come into a sacristy after Mass, the priests would say to the altar servers, Proset, which is Latin for...
May it be to your benefit.
So it's translated as, may it be to your benefit. May the Mass we just celebrated be to your benefit. Or sometimes it's translated as, may it be a blessing to you, or may it be to your health. So there's different ways of translating it. But here we have this little catchphrase at Malvern. We say, Prosit, may it be to your benefit. Peter, you were involved with that retreat, and I think that was your second retreat. Any observations as kind of an outsider still helping out on the weekends?
Sure. Yeah, well, I was just really blessed with seeing all these men come together from so many different backgrounds and ages. There were actually two families, large families, multi-generational, from grandchildren to grandparents, and it was a beautiful thing seeing them come together, share, have fellowship together, and reflect on God and pray together. I was really struck with the fellowship of the retreat and all the men who came together, some of whom haven't seen each other since the last retreat, last year. So it was a blessed weekend, from the conferences given by a deacon to the Mass and all the elements of prayer. It was a privilege to be a part of it.
Yeah, Deacon Don DiCarlo is a deacon in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and this was his first retreat that he gave here at Malvern. And Deacon Don, he hit it out of the park, and the retreatants loved him, but he really enjoyed it himself.
That's important.
The whole, all his conferences were focused on Psalm 51, the Miserere Psalm. So if anyone
Which is Latin. It's the first word, Miserere, of the first word of the psalm.
So if anyone hasn't had a chance to pray that psalm, it's a great opportunity to take a look at it. It's a very beautiful psalm. We pray it in the Liturgy of the Hours every Friday morning, something that Deacon Don made a point of.
Yeah. And what you said about the intergenerational retreat, it really is kind of beautiful when you see Grandpa and his sons and then his grandsons on the same retreat. And there were a couple times when I was driving around on the weekend when I saw a grandfather and his grandson just walking by themselves.
Very beautiful.
So besides the spiritual component, it's just quality time with your dad or with your grandfather.
There was one man, I think he was participating in his 67th retreat here at Malvern. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, 67 years. I was talking to him at lunch, and I said, how many years have you been coming here? And he said, 67. So I asked, were they continuous? And he said, no, I missed a year. And his response was, the reason I couldn't come is like I was getting married that weekend. And I said, what's up with you? Where's your commitment? But for 67 years he's come here.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. A couple of other things that have happened during the week. The Caps were here, the Franciscans.
That's right. So the Capuchin Franciscans came out, a group of 7 friars, and it was primarily for the postulants. So the postulants are first-year Franciscans. They're basically discerning the Franciscan life. They haven't made any formal vows. And they were actually here for the week with the vocation director, Father Rafa, who's from St. John the Evangelist in Center City, Philadelphia. And Father Rafa was giving a retreat this whole week on the vows, on the 3 vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And then there were 2 other priests who were also with him and accompanying the postulants.
Yeah.
So they were down at the Family Life Center and pretty much self-sufficient, taking care of themselves. But I encountered a few of them on the grounds taking walks, and they've been just nothing but happy to be here.
Yeah.
And speaking so wonderfully about this place.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's been a really blessed week for them.
Yeah, I just stopped down to see them. They had Mass this morning, and then they were leaving, and they live in the convent in St. Joachim's Parish, and that's their house of formation. Or people in Philadelphia say Joachim. Instead of Joachim, it's St. Joachim. Like Acme, yeah. We turn a 2-syllable word, acme, into acme, 3 syllables. Anyway, so they're in the former convent there, and they just had a great time. And also, for anybody who might be watching this, we had a captain's conclave on Wednesday, and there were members from the board, members from the staff, and also different captains. And we had 60 people on the Zoom meeting. And it was an hour and 45 minutes, so it was a little bit long, but it really was a great meeting. There was a lot of energy, a lot of good sharing of ideas. And what we're trying to do is have some type of a captain's conclave about quarterly, about every 3 months, so that we can review the retreats with the captains who are going to be attending over the next 3 weeks, or next 3 months. And because things are so fluid with COVID-19, it's just good to meet regularly with the captains.
A conclave being a meeting of sorts?
Yes, a very important meeting with very distinguished people. It's really churchy conclave. But anyway, so it's the captain's conclave.
Okay.
So that's good. And this weekend is... Oh, we have a combined retreat. We have Christus Rex and Fury Memorial.
And it's their first year together.
Oh, it is? Great, great. And Fury Memorial goes back 3 generations. It was started by a Dr. Fury, then his sons took over, and then the grandsons took over as the leadership team. So that's really great. Okay, so a little update on things that are happening. We decided to talk about being good citizens for a couple of reasons. One is because it's a follow-up to last week's gospel where Jesus says, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. But also, we had the debate, the presidential debate just last night. So if you say anything, Peter, or Joanne, that I don't want to hear, I'm just going to mute both of you.
No comment.
No comment,
I did
yeah.
not see it. So.
You have 2 minutes to speak your mind, 2 minutes to speak your mind, and then don't interrupt. But anyway, the presidential debate was last night, but also our country is just saturated with the elections, and so many different things. So it would be good to talk a little bit about what it means to be good citizens. And the bishops in the United States, a while ago now, wrote a great letter, a booklet called Good Citizenship. It's on good citizenship, called Faithful Citizenship. And it talks about how we as American Catholics can be faithful to God and faithful to being a citizen in the United States. And it talks about a lot of different things. One of the things it talks about is the importance of being a community, of building relationships with people, and of knowing the people basically that you live with in your neighborhood. Any comments on that? Any observations about that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the pressing needs of our time, is to really rediscover neighborhood, rediscover the people who live right next to us. not only form community, but be of service as Christians to the people who live close to us. I know I was living in Grays Ferry before I came to Malvern, and there's a number of people in South Philadelphia, elderly, who are living on their own and really are in need of people to support them, to help them, maybe with some errands, with grocery shopping. But more and more, I see that people are isolated.
Yeah, isolated.
Isolated, you know, we're just watching TV, kind of enclosed in their own environment. And it's
Technological
a
world.
technological bubble. And I guess it just seems not healthy for people in general, from young to old. And this need to get to know each other, to support each other, to have dialogue, and to find out how we can make our neighborhoods better places, safer places. You know, they have a community garden near Grays Ferry, and that's something that people from all over the South Philly area were coming to use personally for their own garden plots, but it was just a way for people to get together, to work together on a common cause.
Yeah,
And I was really impressed with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joanne, any ideas about the whole need for community and for relationships in our society today, especially like with the technological challenges that we have, or no, the challenges that are generated by living in a technological world?
Well, I think it speaks to what Peter said about people are being isolated, and I think there are so many people in need of all ages, especially at this time with COVID. Not every commercial, but so many commercials throughout the day and night, if you're watching television, about children with challenges and depression and things like that. And so maybe we can all become a little bit more creative about how we can help, you know, and make life a little bit more joyful in these times, and helping our neighbors that way. And you know, there are certainly, as we spoke about earlier, being a volunteer in many service organizations, whether it's through your church or community organizations, things like that. I'm drawing a blank right now. A couple of the organizations that we talked about, but that's, you know, I think that's helpful to do.
I shared this, I think, on last week, maybe on my explanation of the gospel, that we're isolated. We live alone as Americans nowadays. And one example of that is our developments don't have sidewalks. You drive into a development, you drive right into your driveway, you go up your driveway or down your driveway, you go right into the garage, the door closes behind you, and you're with your family, and that's it. So the bishops say that we really need to be intentional about creating community. And in the United States, in our own individual state, in our community, in the borough where we live, in the county, in the city.
Yeah.
So,
Two other things come to mind. One is taking advantage of public spaces. Yesterday I was on the Chester County Trail.
yeah,
And it was just it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful trail, and there were lots of people out walking, biking, and you say hello, you know, you greet people. And even if you're not getting into these deep conversations, it's an encounter with the world around you and with the beauty of the natural world. But I think really reclaiming our public spaces and taking pride in them and meeting people in those places. Another thing that I was thinking of is things that we enjoy to do outside of our own environment, inviting other people into that. So whether it is going for a bike ride, inviting somebody to come along with you, and then when you're with other people, it's, I think, easier to connect with other people you don't know.
yeah.
I was just thinking of sharing a meal. We shared a meal, Father Jim and I, earlier this week, and it went a little long.
11:30, he left my house at 11:30. I said, oh
But it was, you know, it's coming together, I think,
Yeah.
is, beautiful.
Yeah. Both of you mentioned about the importance of getting involved with organizations. You mentioned earlier about the community park in Grays Ferry. You mentioned some organizations too. So let's move on from just the need to create community relationships to getting involved. What are some of the organizations that people can get involved with, civic organizations, and why is that important? Like you mentioned the community garden. You know, the Knights of Columbus is a Catholic organization. But there's also, you know, the Kiwanis Club, or Dave here at the Malvern Retreat House is very involved with Little League Baseball.
Yes.
So there's ways of, what are some of those organizations, why is it important?
There's, when you were saying that, I thought of us working in soup kitchens and helping to feed people. And although you may not come directly in contact, they know that those people who have that need, they know that someone loves them and is caring for them. It's a way, to me it goes beyond, because it's a way to demonstrate our faith as well, and take care of God's people. And in many volunteer organizations, whether it's your church or other civic, the number of civic organizations, the Red Cross, Salvation Army.
That's right, yeah.
Many of those kinds of needs are probably, we need more people now than ever because of COVID, and people are falling away from it. They don't want to be
Right.
out in public.
Yeah, and I think it's good for Catholics to get involved with those organizations, because if Catholics just hang out with other Catholics and join up in other Catholic ministries and services and organizations, it's just like a Catholic bubble. It's a Catholic, you know, ghetto almost. Whereas it's important to bring our faith into the public sphere, into the public square, witness our faith there, and work together, partner with other organizations that are trying to, you know, promote the common good, which is what, as Christians, we're about as well.
Before the pandemic began, I was always impressed when I went back home and stopped in at the library, the public library in Wissahickon. And it's really, there's always so many events going on. There was a philosophers club. There was a knitting club. There was, you know, just various events and activities throughout the week. People were sharing on trips. They were giving like a photography event of their recent trip in Europe. And I was just struck by, wow, this is a place I could really get involved in and get to know people. So the library is a great, I think, example of a place where we can really get to know our community and get involved. And then Father Jim, you mentioned it with sports as well. I mean, there's recreational sports, I think, happening in most of our townships, and whether you're in the city or in the suburbs.
Starting up.
Yeah, maybe starting up now anew, which just, it's a healthy way to interact and get to know people and have some fun.
Another thing the bishops talk about in faithful citizenship is the importance of voting. And the bishops say, as citizens, we have a right and the privilege of voting, but also we have to be informed as Catholics about the issues. And I think that's really important now with the presidential elections coming up, but elections at every level of government in our country. So any comments, anything you'd like to share or discuss about voting as it's coming up?
From my perspective, I would like to just share that, and I heard this on the radio the other day, and to really just spend about an hour before you go pray, or before you go vote, to just sit and reflect on each of the candidates and discern all of the issues on both sides, and make a determination and ask God to direct you.
So you heard about the importance of really praying about who you're going to vote for, but also going through a discernment process.
Yes.
You know, compare what the candidates stand for, look at it objectively, bring it to prayer, and discern. Great. What else?
Is there, are there platforms where that you could recommend to us where we could go and explore the candidates and what they stand for, what they believe, what they're pushing for? Because I'm not too familiar with it. I should be.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So the USCCB, the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, has a great website, and they will offer information about what the candidates stand for. Then each one of the states will have a Catholic conference that represents the Catholic Church in that state. So you can go and check out that way, the Catholics for the state. Also, your local diocese or archdiocese will always have information about the candidates, and at that level, it's more local. It gets a little bit more granular than just presidential elections. So that would be another source of good Catholic information about what the candidates stand for. Yeah. So it's important to vote. And I think the last thing that we should be aware of is, all of this stuff may drive us crazy right now, but my mom and dad left Ireland and they never wanted to go anywhere else except America, because America was it. And immigrants really can remind us what a privilege it is to live in the United States.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so even with all the craziness out there and the rancor and the lack of civility, we should always be grateful, I think, that we live in America.
Yeah. I know as a young person, it's sometimes easy to take for granted all the privileges and blessings that we have grown up here with, because they've been a part of our lives, and I haven't quite experienced the opposite of them. So it's a great reminder, Father Jim, thank you. It's a continual practice of gratitude can be nothing but good for us.
Yeah. Joanne?
No, I agree. I can't really add to that. I think that because my family background is the same. I came from Italy, and they were just so grateful to become Americans. And, they could barely speak the language, but the flip side is they wouldn't let me speak Italian.
Yeah, sure.
Because they said, you're in this country, speak our language.
Yeah. So, okay, well listen, the elections are coming up. Be good citizens, and thanks for joining us this Saturday. And we have something on the website every day, something new every day. It would be great if you could watch that, and also encourage people to watch it as well. It's a way of sharing the Malvern Retreat House with others. And come back and join us often. Thanks everyone, and God bless.